I don't kneel and I don't buy your moon god nonsense. The twin moons blazed silver overhead, casting a cold glow across Crescent Dock. Kyle Draven sprinted through the chaos, his boots thudding against the metal gridwalk. Sirens wailed, a shrill scream slicing through the humid air. His hands, slick with grease, clutched a wrench as he dodged a hovering cargo drone. The reactor on his ship was dying, spitting sparks, and he had minutes, maybe less, to fix it. Around him the crowd buzzed, their voices a low hum of Vox Lunara, a chant that grated on his nerves. He darted past a stall glowing with bioluminescent stones, the sweet tang of sap wafting from the forest beyond. Then it happened. His boot snagged a slick patch of crystal flooring. Time slowed as he stumbled, arms flailing. He crashed forward, his left hand slamming onto a woman's shoulder, his right gripping another's wrist. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. The air turned heavy, charged with something electric. Kale scrambled to his feet, heart pounding like a piston. Two women stood before him, draped in shimmering crystal robes. One had silver hair cascading like liquid starlight, her violet eyes narrowing with fury. The other, shorter, bore black hair cropped sharp, her tattooed hands twitching as if ready to strike. The crowd parted, and a towering figure emerged. Malor the High Priest, his silver cloak billowing. His voice boomed through the dock's crystal speakers, deep and unyielding. The Chosen One has appeared. Kale froze, his wrench still clenched tight. The moons above seemed to pulse, their light etching more shadows across Malor's scarred face. The priest's eyes glinted like polished steel. You have three paths, outsider. Bind yourself in blood to the sacred ones. Die under the blood moon's right, or flee until we hunt you down. The silver-haired woman, Silra, he'd later learn, stepped forward, her tone sharp as a blade. Choose quickly, blasphemer. The moons don't wait. Beside her, the tattooed one, Vena, tilted her head, her voice a low hiss. He reeks of metal and doubt. Unworthy. Kale straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. His chest ached where an old scar throbbed beneath his jacket. He'd faced worse than pompous priests and cryptic threats. The crowd murmured, a mix of fear and curiosity. An old woman clutched a silver lantern, whispering prayers. A young smith, hammer in hand, stared at Kale with wide eyes, like he'd seen something extraordinary. I don't kneel, Kale said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his gut. He lifted the wrench, its weight grounding him. And I don't buy your moon god nonsense. A ripple of shock ran through the dock. The old woman gasped, dropping her lantern with a clatter. The smith grinned, a flicker of defiance in his gaze. Malor's lips curled into a thin, dangerous smile. Bold words, outsider, but the moon's judge, not me. The air thickened as the speakers crackled again. Step forward for the binding, or your fate seals now. Silra's hand hovered near a gleaming energy bow strapped to her back. Vena's tattoos pulsed faintly, a warning hum filling the silence. Kale's mind raced. His ship was dead without that reactor fix. Running wasn't an option, not yet, but binding. To what? He took a breath, the scent of sap and ozone sharp in his lungs. Every eye locked on him, the weight of their stares pressing down. He'd come here chasing a signal, a ghost from his past. Now he was caught in some lunar trap, and the clock was ticking. Well, Malor pressed, his voice a low growl. What's it gonna be? Kale smirked, flipping the wrench in his hand. Let's see what your moon's got. But before he could move, a distant rumble shook the dock. Something big was waking beneath the forest floor. The rumble faded, leaving a tense hush over Crescent Dock. Kyle Draven stood firm, wrench in hand as the twin moons glared down. Their silver light danced across the crystal spires, painting the crowd in eerie streaks. Silra's grip tightened on her bow, her violet eyes flicking toward the forest. Vena crossed her arms, tattoos glowing faintly, her scowl unwavering. Malar loomed ahead, his cloak rippling in the humid breeze. The air smelled of sap and static, thick with the promise of trouble. Kale's chest heaved, his pulse still racing. From the fall, he needed a moment, any moment to think. His ship's reactor was a ticking bomb, and now, this. He shifted his weight, feeling the old scar on his ribs ache. The crowd watched, a mix of faces, the old woman clutching her broken lantern, the smith with his hammer, a kid peeking from behind a stall. Their whispers buzzed like static. Vox Lunera, chosen one. He reached into his jacket pocket, fingers brushing a battered comm device. It was his lifeline, his reason for being here. He pulled it out, the scratched screen flickering to life with a dull hum. A single log blinked on, his brother's last message. The words crackled through the tiny speaker, faint but sharp. Kyle, it's Joran. I'm on Lunara 7. Find the truth beneath the moons. The sound of Joran's voice hit him like a punch. Kale's throat tightened, guilt clawing at his gut. He'd been too late, years too late, to answer that call. The signal had come 5 years back, a desperate ping from this backwater rock. He'd ignored it then, chasing contracts across the galaxy. Now, standing under these cursed moons, he couldn't shake the weight of it. "Who you calling to, outsider?" Silra snapped, stepping closer. Her voice cut through the haze, crisp and commanding. She towered over him, her silver hair catching the moonlight like a halo. Kyle slipped the comm back into his pocket, meeting her glare. "Nobody you'd know, just a ghost." Vena snorted, her tone dripping with venom. "Ghosts don't fix ships. You're stalling." She tapped a finger against her arm, the tattoos pulsing like a heartbeat. "Maybe I am." Kyle shot back, his voice low but steady. He flipped the wrench once, catching it mid-air. "But I don't bow to your moon games either." The smith in the crowd chuckled, a rough sound that broke the tension. The old woman hissed, clutching her beads tighter. Malar raised a hand, silencing them. All, his gaze bore into Kale, heavy and cold. "Your defiance means nothing. The binding begins now, or your blood stains the crystal." Kale's mind spun. Joran had been here, lost to this place. The truth beneath the moons. What did it mean? His brother had always been the dreamer, the one chasing wild theories. Kyle was the fixer, the one who made things work. He'd come to Lunara 7 to find answers, not to play chosen one in some lunar cult. But that rumble, he'd felt it in his bones. Something was alive down there, and it wasn't just his imagination. He glanced at the comm again. It screened dark now. Joran's voice echoed in his head, a tether to why he couldn't walk away. He had to fix the ship, find his brother's trail, and get out. But first, he had to survive this mess. Malor's voice sliced through his thoughts, sharp as a blade. "Step forward, outsider." "Time's up." Kale squared his shoulders, the wrench a solid weight in his grip. "Fine. Let's see your ritual." Before anyone could move, the ground trembled again. Stronger this time. A deep groan echoed from the forest, like metal tearing apart. The crowd screamed, scattering as dust rose from the crystal floor. Silra drew her bow, eyes wide. Vena stumbled, cursing under her breath. Kale tightened his hold on the wrench. Whatever was waking up, it wasn't waiting for permission. Dust settled over Crescent Dock as the tremor faded, leaving a brittle silence. Kale Draven stood rooted, wrench in hand, as the twin moons burned silver above. The air buzzed with static, thick with the scent of sap and scorched metal. Crystal spires gleamed around him, their edges catching the light like blades. The crowd huddled, their breaths shallow, eyes darting between Kale and the forest beyond. That rumble, it wasn't just a glitch. Something was stirring and he could feel it. Silra lowered her energy bow, her violet gaze sharp as she scanned the tree line. "The moons are restless," she said, her voice tight with warning. Her silver hair swayed as a breeze rustled through, carrying whispers of leaves. Vena steadied herself, brushing dirt from her robes. Or your outsider broke something. Her tattoos flickered, a soft hum pulsing from her hands. She shot Kale a glare, venom lacing every word. Kale ignored her, his focus on the world unfolding around him. Lunara 7 wasn't just some backwater pit stop. It breathed. The forest glowed faintly, its trees pulsing with green veins of light. Villages of crystal huts dotted the horizon, their roofs shimmering under the moons. Lanterns hung from branches, silver flames flickering as if alive. The people here lived in a strange dance of tech and faith. A smith hammered at a stall, his tools crude but precise. A farmer adjusted a glowing irrigation tube, muttering prayers to the moons. 500 years ago, the Ecliptica had crashed here, chasing bioenergy tree. Kale knew the story from old logs. Colonists turned to survivors, then to believers. Those moons weren't gods. They were satellites, ancient relics of a lost mission. But to these folks, they were divine. The high priest, Malor, ruled them with that lie, his silver cloak a banner of control. Kale's jaw tightened. He'd seen cults before, but none this entrenched. Move, Malor barked, his voice cutting through the stillness. He strode forward, his scarred face hard under the moonlight. The binding waits for no quake. Kyle turned, meeting the priest's stare. You think I care about your rituals? His tone was flat, edged with steel. He tapped the wrench against his palm, a steady rhythm grounding him. Malor's eyes narrowed. You'll care when the moons demand your blood. He gestured to Silra and Vena. Take him. Now. Silra hesitated, her bow still in hand. He's not one of us, she said, almost to herself. Her fingers twitched, torn between duty and doubt. Vena smirked, stepping closer. He's a fool who'll die quick. She tilted her head, sizing him up. Maybe that's mercy. Kyle snorted, a dry laugh escaping his lips. Keep dreaming, tattoo girl. He glanced at the crowd, divided, uncertain. The smith nodded slightly, a spark of respect in his eyes. The farmer clutched his beads, fear etched deep. A kid with wide eyes peeked out, whispering, Is he really chosen? This was Lunara 7, a world of faith and gears, caught between what was and what could be. Kale didn't buy the moon god spiel, but he couldn't deny the tech buried here. Yoren had found something worth dying for. The Ecliptica's legacy wasn't just wreckage. It was alive in those moons, in the forest's hum, and now, in him. Malor raised a hand, his voice booming. Enough stalling. The temple awaits. Kale shifted his stance, the wrench a familiar weight. He'd come for answers, not chains. But before he could reply, a sharp crack split the air. The ground lurched again, harder this time. Crystal shards rained from a nearby spire, clattering like glass. The crowd screamed, some running, others dropping to their knees. Silra spun, bow raised. Vena cursed, her tattoos flaring bright. Kale steadied himself, eyes locked on the forest. A low, grinding roar echoed from the depths, metal and stone twisting together. Whatever Yoren had woken up, it was coming closer, and it wasn't happy. The forest's roar lingered in the air as Kale Draven was marched toward the temple. Crystal dust stung his eyes, kicked up by the quake. His boots crunched over the fractured dock, the wrench still gripped tight in his hand. Silra flanked his left, her energy bow slung across her back, her silver hair glinting onto the twin moons. Vena strode to his right, her tattoos pulsing faintly, a soft buzz cutting through the humid night. Ahead, Malor led the way, his silver cloak billowing like a storm cloud. The temple loomed, a massive dome of white crystal carved with swirling runes. Lanterns swayed from its arches, silver flames casting shadows that danced like ghosts. The air smelled of burnt ozone and sweet sap, a strange mix that clung to Kale's lungs. His chest tightened, not just from the march, but from something else. Joran's voice echoed in his mind, faint and fading. Find the truth. They descended a spiral ramp into the temple's heart, the walls humming with a low, electric thrum. At the center stood a raised platform, ringed by glowing conduits. 2 crystal pillars flanked it, each etched with a moon symbol. Malor stopped, turning to face Kale. His voice rumbled, deep and commanding. The moon's mark awaits. Step forward, outsider. Kale halted, his jaw set. And if I don't? He tapped the wrench against his leg, a steady beat against the tension. Silra's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. Then your blood feeds the right instead. She gripped her bow, knuckles whitening. Vena smirked, leaning closer. He's too stubborn to live long. Her voice dripped with mockery, her tattoos flaring briefly. Malor raised a hand, silencing them. Enough. The moons decide his worth. He gestured to the platform. Kneel. Kale didn't budge. His mind raced, piecing together the scene. Those conduits, they weren't just decoration. They pulsed like power lines, tech buried under ritual nonsense. He'd seen setups like this on old colony wrecks, bioenergy siphons maybe. Joran would have loved this puzzle. But Kyle wasn't here to kneel. He was here to figure it out. Move, Malor growled, stepping aside as 2 guards in crystal armor approached. Their boots clacked against the floor, a hollow echo filling the chamber. Kyle tensed, ready to swing, but Silra grabbed his arm first. Her grip was iron, her voice low. Don't make this harder. He yanked free, glaring at her. I don't do easy. Before she could reply, the guard shoved him forward. He stumbled onto the platform, the conduits flaring bright. A sharp jolt shot through his body, like static crawling under his skin. He grunted, dropping to one knee as the pillars hummed, louder. Then it hit, pain, searing and deep, blooming in his chest. His vision blurred, and Joran's face flashed before him, laughing, young, alive. The memories slipped away, dissolving into static. Kyle gasped, clutching his ribs. What the hell? His voice cracked, raw with shock. He couldn't picture Joran's smile anymore, just a blank space where it used to be. Malor's voice cut through the haze. The moon's mark takes what it needs. You're bound now. Silra stepped closer, her expression flickering. Anger, maybe pity. It's done. You're ours. She sounded less certain than before. Vena crossed her arms, her smirk gone. He's weaker already. Pathetic. But her eyes lingered, curious despite herself. Kyle staggered to his feet, the wrench slipping in his sweaty grip. His head pounded, but his senses sharpened. Too sharp. He heard the conduits hum clearer, felt the air shift around him. The mark had changed him. But how? He glared at Malor, voice rough. You think this controls me? Think again. Malor's smile was thin, cold. It's not control. It's fate. He turned to the guards. Prepare the next step. The chamber trembled again, a low groan rising from below. Dust trickled from the ceiling, pattering onto the platform. Silra spun, bow raised, her voice urgent. Something's wrong. Vena's tattoos flared bright, her breath catching. The moon's wrath, or his doing. She shot Kale a look, half accusing, half unsure. Kale steadied himself, the wrench heavy in his hand. His brother's voice was gone, but a new sound replaced it. A grinding metallic screech from deep underground. Whatever they'd woken, it was climbing closer, and it knew his name. The temple shuddered as the metallic screech faded, leaving a heavy stillness in its wake. Kyle Draven stood on the platform, his chest heaving, the wrench slick with sweat in his hand. The twin moon's light filtered through the crystal dome, casting jagged shadows across the chamber. Dust floated in the air, sharp with the tying of ozone and burnt sap. The conduits around him pulsed, their hum a steady throb against his sharpened senses. Silra gripped her bow, her violet eyes scanning the ceiling. Vena's tattoos flickered, her breath quick and uneven. Malor turned, his silver cloak sweeping the floor. The moons speak, he said. his voice low and certain. The binding holds. Kyle's head throbbed, a dull ache where Joran's memory had been ripped away. He couldn't recall his brother's smile, just a vague warmth, slipping like sand through his fingers. He clenched his jaw, forcing the fog back. His eyes darted to the pillars, their runes glowing faintly. Something about them tugged at him, a flicker of recognition he couldn't place. "Get him off there," Silra ordered, her tone clipped. She stepped forward, her boots echoing on the crystal floor. "We need to move," Vayna smirked, though her eyes stayed wary. "Afraid he'll break more than your faith." "Warrior," she flicked a tattooed hand, dismissing the tension. Kale ignored them, kneeling to inspect a pillar. His fingers brushed the runes, cool and smooth under his touch. The pattern wasn't random. It was code, binary, scratched into the crystal. Like a signature, his heart skipped. He'd seen this before, in Joran's old tech logs. His brother had a habit of carving his mark into every project, a looping sequence of ones and zeros. "Yorin," Kale muttered, his voice barely a whisper. He pulled his comm device from his pocket, its screen flickering on. The last log blinked. "Find the truth beneath the moons." His gut twisted. Joran had been here, in this temple, leaving breadcrumbs in the stone. Silra loomed over him, her shadow falling across the platform. "What are you mumbling about, outsider?" Her bow rested at her side, but her stance was rigid. Kale stood, holding her gaze. "Something your moons didn't tell you." He tapped the wrench against the axe, pillar, a sharp clang ringing out. "This isn't magic, it's tech." Vayna laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Tech? You think your tools explain the moons?" Her tattoos pulsed brighter, a challenge in her stare. "Maybe not your gods," Kale shot back, his voice steady. "But someone built this. Someone human." Mallo's head snapped toward him, his eyes narrowing. "Blasphemy won't save you." He gestured to the guards. "Take him to the sanctum." Before they could move, a drone whirred into the chamber, its hull dented and sparking. It veered, wildly, crashing into a conduit with a loud crack. Sparks flew, the hum spiking into a shrill whine. Silra shoved Kale aside, her bow snapping up as she fired. The energy bolt struck true, and the drone exploded in a burst of blue flame. Kyle hit the floor, rolling to his feet. "Nice shot," he said, brushing dust from his jacket. His tone was dry, but his pulse raced. Silra lowered her bow, her breath ragged. "It wasn't supposed to be here." She glanced at him, her guard slipping for a moment. "You draw trouble. Maybe trouble finds me," Kyle replied, offering a faint grin. He caught her eye. A flicker of respect, maybe, buried under duty. Vayna stepped between them, her voice sharp. "Enough flirting. We've got bigger problems." She pointed to the shattered drone, its wreckage smoking. Kale crouched beside it, wrench in hand. The design was old, Ecliptica era, patched with crystal shards. His mind clicked. Joran hadn't just been here. He'd worked here, tinkering with the same tech Kyle knew by heart. But why drones? Why this temple? Malor's voice cut through. His thoughts, cold, uncommanding. "The sanctum awaits. Now." He turned, leading them deeper into the temple. Kyle rose, slipping the wrench into his belt. Silra watched him, her expression torn. Faith battling something new. Vayna muttered under her breath, her tattoos dimming. The chamber grew quiet, but a faint vibration pulsed through the floor. Then it came. A voice, mechanical and deep, echoing from the walls. "Kyle, you've come." Silra froze, her bow trembling. Vayna's eyes widened, her tattoos flaring. Kyle's blood ran cold. It knew him, and it wasn't human. The mechanical voice hung in the air, a cold echo bouncing off the temple's crystal walls. Kale Draven froze, his wrench halfway to his belt, the weight of it suddenly heavier. The twin moon's light streamed through the dome, painting the chamber in silver streaks. Dust swirled from the drone's wreckage, the sharp sting of burnt circuits mixing with the sap-sweet air. Silra's bow trembled in her grip, her violet eyes wide with shock. Vena's tattoos flared bright, a frantic hum rising from her hands. Mahler stood still, his silver cloak catching the glow, his face unreadable. "Who said that?" Silra demanded, her voice cracking as she swung her bow toward the shadows. Her silver hair whipped around, catching the light like a blade. Vena took a step back, her tone sharp but unsteady. "It's not the moons. It can't be." Her tattoos pulsed faster, a rhythm of fear. Kale's blood thrummed in his ears, loud, as the conduits hum. That voice, it knew his name. Not Joran's, not some ghost's, but his. He scanned the chamber, his sharpened senses picking up every detail. The pillars glowed faintly, their runes flickering like a dying screen. The floor vibrated, a low pulse he felt through his boots. Whatever spoke, it was here, woven into this place. Malor's voice cut through the tension, firm and cold. "Silence. The moons test us." He turned to Kale, his eyes narrowing. "Your presence stirs their wrath." Kale met his stare, unflinching. "Or your tech's finally talking back." He tapped the wrench against his thigh, a steady beat against the chaos. The crowd outside the temple buzzed, their voices filtering through the crystal walls. A young smith, Rin, Kale remembered, shouted, "The outsider's right. I've seen those runes on old gears." His words carried a spark of defiance, rough and eager. An older voice snapped back, sharp with anger. "Blasphemy, the moons protect us." It was Tira, a beadmaker, her tone thick with faith. Kale caught glimpses through the archway. Rin clutching his hammer, Tira waving her prayer beads. A farmer named Gav, watching with quiet doubt. Silra lowered her bow, her breath hitching. "This isn't right," she muttered, almost to herself. Her gaze flicked to Kale, searching for something. "Answers maybe." Vena snorted, regaining her edge. "He's a curse, not a savior." She pointed at him, her tattoos steadying. "We should end this now." Kale smirked, his voice dry. "Try it, Glowstick. See who's left standing." He shifted his stance, ready for a fight. Malor raised a hand, his voice booming. "Enough. The sanctum will settle this." He turned, striding toward a shadowed passage, expecting obedience. But the rift was growing. Rin stepped closer to the temple's edge, his hammer gleaming. "I fixed drones like that one. It's no god." His words drew nods from a few, Gav among them, his weathered face creased with thought. Tira clutched her beads tighter, her lips moving in silent prayer. A kid peeked out, whispering, "What if he's chosen for real?" Kale's mind raced. Joran's code on the pillars, the drone, that voice. It all tied back to the Ecliptica. His brother had been here, leaving marks in the tech these people worshipped. But why call him now? He needed time, not shackles. The mark thrummed in his chest, a strange heat spreading through him. It wasn't just pain. It was power, raw and untested. Silra grabbed his arm, her grip firm but less hostile. "Move, outsider. We're not done." Her voice softened, a crack in her armor showing through. He pulled free, meeting her eyes. "Call me Kyle. I'm not your ghost." A faint grin tugged at his lips, testing her. She blinked, caught off guard. "Kyle," she repeated, testing the word. Then she turned away, hiding a flicker of doubt. Vena rolled her eyes, her voice a hiss. "Names won't save you." She followed Mela, her steps sharp and quick. The chamber grew still, the crowd's murmurs fading into the hum of the conduits. Kale took a breath, the air thick with ozone and tension. He'd stirred something, among the people, in the temple, maybe in Silra. But before he could think it through, the floor jolted hard. A deafening crack split the crystal wall, revealing a jagged fissure. Red light pulsed from within, angry and alive. The voice returned, louder now. "Kale, it's time." And then the ground began to split. The jungle swallowed them whole, its glowing canopy a maze of green light and shadow. Draven pushed through the undergrowth, his wrench swinging at vines that snapped with a wet crack. The air hung thick, heavy with the scent of sap and damp earth. Bioluminescent tendrils pulsed along the trees, casting an eerie glow across his path. Silra moved ahead, her energy bow cutting through the foliage with precise flicks. Vayna trailed behind, her tattoos humming faintly, her steps cautious on the uneven ground. The temple's collapse still echoed in Kale's mind, crystals shattering, that voice calling his name. Malor had stayed behind, barking orders to seal the breach. But Kale, Silra, and Vayna pressed on, chasing answers into the forest. The twin moons peeked through the leaves, their silver light fractured by the canopy. Every rustle made Kale's grip tighten, his senses sharp from the moons. "Mark, keep up, Kale," Silra called, her voice steady but edged with strain. She sliced a glowing vine, its sap hissing as it hit the dirt. He smirked, brushing sweat from his brow. "Not my first jungle run, Silra." His tone was light, testing the truce between them. Vayna snorted, her voice sharp as she stepped over. "A root. You'll slow us down, wrenchman." Her tattoos flickered, a restless buzz in the stillness. Kyle ignored her, his eyes scanning the trees. The forest wasn't just alive, it was engineered. Those tendrils weren't natural. They pulsed like circuits, a biotech relic of the Ecliptica. Joran would have seen it too. His brother had always chased the impossible, while Kale fixed what broke. Now he was stuck in both roles. A sharp snap broke his thoughts. Silra spun, bow raised, as a vine lashed out from the shadows. Its tip gleamed, sharp as a needle, dripping with glowing sap. Kale lunged, shoving her aside. The vine struck, grazing his arm with a searing sting. He cursed, swinging the wrench. Hard. It connected with a loud crunch, snapping the tendril in two. Green sap sprayed, sizzling on the ground. Silra rolled to her feet, bow steady. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice tight but softer. Her violet eyes met his, a spark of something new flickering there. "Habit," Kyle replied, wincing as he rubbed his arm. The cut burned. But he'd had worse. "Can't fix a fight if you're down." Vayna stepped closer, her smirk gone. "He's reckless," she muttered, but her tone lacked its usual bite. She knelt, inspecting the broken vine with a frown. Silra lowered her bow, her breath steadying. "Reckless or not, you're alive because of him." She glanced at Kyle, her guard cracking just a bit. He nodded, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "Call it teamwork. First time for everything." The words hung between them, a fragile bridge. The jungle pressed in, its hum growing louder, a chorus of clicks and whirs beneath the leaves. Kyle's sharpened senses caught it all. The rustle of unseen creatures, the drip of sap, the faint buzz of Vayna's tattoos. The mark was changing him, but he couldn't dwell on it. Not now. Joran's trail was out here, buried in this mess of tech and green. Vayna stood, brushing dirt from her robes. "This place, it's not right," she said, her voice low. She pointed ahead, where the trees thinned. "Look!" A clearing opened up, revealing a jagged wreck half sunk in the soil. Metal gleamed under moss, twisted and rusted, but unmistakable. An Ecliptica-class hull. Kyle's heart kicked hard. Joran had been here, working on this. The vines coiled around it, pulsing like veins, feeding off its remains. "That's no temple relic," Kale said, stepping forward. He tapped the wrench against his palm, a steady rhythm against his nerves. "That's my brother's playground." Silra followed, her bow at her side. "Your brother?" Her tone shifted, curious now, less hostile. "Joran," Kyle answered, his voice rough. "He came here, left me a message to follow." Vayna's eyes narrowed, her tattoos dimming. "And brought us this mess." She gestured to the wreck, skeptical but listening. Before Kale could reply, the ground trembled. A loud hiss erupted from the wreck, steam venting from its hull. The vines tightened, glowing brighter, and a shadow moved inside. Big, metallic, and awake. Kale raised his wrench, his voice steady. Guess we're about to find out. Steam hissed from the Ecliptica wreck, curling through the jungle air like a living thing. Kale Draven stood ready, wrench raised, as the twin moons cast silver beams across the rusted hull. The vines tightened around it, their green glow pulsing. Faster, a heartbeat in the dark. Silra flanked him, her energy bow drawn taut, her silver hair catching the light. Vena hung back, her tattoos humming with a nervous buzz. Her eyes locked on the shadow shifting inside. The forest thrummed, low chorus of clicks and rustles rising around them. The wreck groaned, metal scraping as the shadow emerged. A hulking figure stepped out, tall, angular, made of twisted steel and crystal. Its surface shimmered, patched with glowing vines that snaked across its frame. A single red eye glowed in its head, flickering as it turned toward Kale. The air crackled with static, sharp with the scent of ozone and damp moss. Kale Draven, it said, its voice deep and grinding, like gears grinding through stone. You've come at last. Silra's bow wavered, her breath catching. What in the moon's name is that? Her tone trembled, torn between awe and fear. Vena's tattoos flared bright, her voice sharp. It's no god, it's wrong. She took a step back, hands clenched tight. Kale lowered his wrench, his pulse pounding. You know me, he said, keeping his voice steady. Who are you? The figure tilted its head, the red eye pulsing. I am the Warden, built to guard the Ecliptica's crew. It paused, a low hum rumbling from its chest. But I failed. A glitch turned me against them. I killed those I swore to protect. The words hit Kyle like a shockwave. He stared at the machine, piecing it together. The Ecliptica had come for bioenergy, and this AI, Joran's work maybe, had been its shield. The twin moons, those satellites, powered it through neural waves, syncing with the forest's tech. But something broke, and it snapped. Joran tried to fix you, Kale said, his voice rough. He stepped closer, the wrench a lifeline in his grip. Didn't he? The Warden's eye dimmed, then flared. Joran Draven. He rewrote my code, sealed me here. But he couldn't stop the fault. Its metal arm creaked, pointing to the moons. The satellites amplify me. I'm tied to them. And now, to you. Silra lowered her bow, her eyes wide. This is what the moon's mark does? Her voice softened, doubt creeping in. Kale nodded, his mind racing. It's not magic. It's a link, tech tying us to this thing. He tapped the wrench against his palm, thinking fast. Vena's laugh was brittle, cutting through the tension. Your brother cursed us all, then. Her tattoo steadied, but her glare stayed fierce. Before Kale could snap back, a new voice broke in. Mahler's, sharp and commanding. Step away from it. He emerged from the trees, his silver cloak stained with dust, his face twisted with fury. That's no Warden. It's the curse. The high priest strode forward, his hands glowing with a faint, fiery light. Plasma. Kale realized tech he'd hidden under ritual. The Ecliptica brought ruin, Mahler said, his voice trembling. Our ancestors died because of machines like this. I won't let it happen again. Kyle faced him, unflinching. Joran didn't curse you. He tried to save you. His tone was hard, edged with grief. And I'll finish it. Mahler's eyes blazed. You'll destroy us all. He raised a hand, the plasma flaring brighter. The moons demand order. Silra stepped between them, her bow loose at her side. Wait, she said, her voice firm but uncertain. What if he's right? Mahler's glare shifted to her, cold and cutting. You'd betray the moons for this outsider. His words stung, heavy with accusation. Kale watched her hesitate, her silver hair catching the moon's light. She didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. Vena shifted, her tattoos dimming, her loyalty wavering too. The Warden stood, still, its red eye fixed on Kyle, waiting. Then the jungle shook. A loud crack split the air, and the wreck lurched upward. Vines snapped, glowing sap spraying as something bigger rumbled beneath. Malar stumbled, his plasma flickering. Silra grabbed Kale's arm, steadying him. The Warden's voice boomed, urgent now. The fault wakes. It's not me, it's below. Kale tightened his grip on the wrench. The real fight was just beginning. The jungle trembled as the wreck lurched, its rusted hull groaning under the strain. Kale Draven braced himself, wrench in hand, as the twin moon's silver light pierced the canopy. Glowing vines snapped, their sap sizzling on the ground with a sharp, acrid sting. The Warden stood still, its red eye glowing steady, a silent sentinel amid the chaos. Silra held Kale's arm, her grip firm, her energy bow loose at her side. Vena stumbled back, her tattoos flaring with a frantic hum. Malar regained his footing, his plasma-lit hands casting an orange glow across the clearing. The fault wakes, the Warden repeated, its voice a deep rumble. Below us, it's breaking free. Kale's mind raced, his sharpened senses picking up every detail. The ground pulsed, a rhythm like a failing engine. He'd felt it before. On dying ships, when reactors spun out of control. This wasn't just tech. It was alive, tied to the moons, to the Warden, to him. Joran had sealed it, but Kale could fix it. He had to. "Get me closer," he said, pulling free from Silra. His voice was steady, cutting through the tension. He stepped toward the wreck, wrench ready. Silra followed, her bow raised again. "You're mad," she said, but she matched his pace. Her silver hair gleamed, a beacon in the dark. Vena's laugh was sharp, nervous. "He'll kill us all." Her tattoos dimmed, her confidence shaken. She stayed back, eyes darting. Malor lunged forward, plasma flaring. "Stop him." His voice cracked with fury, his cloak whipping in the humid wind. "He'll unleash the curse." Kyle ignored him, kneeling by the wreck's open hatch. The vines parted, revealing a panel. Old Ecliptica era, but familiar. He pried it loose with the wrench, a loud clang echoing as it hit the ground. Inside, circuits glowed, linked to a neural core pulsing with green light. The Warden's tech, Joran's tech. Kale traced the lines, his fingers steady despite the quake. The moon's waves fed it, amplifying the fault. He could reroute it, dampen the surge. "Hold them off," he called to Silra, his tone urgent. He yanked a wire free, sparks flying with a sharp pop. Silra spun, firing an energy bolt at Malar. It grazed his arm, sizzling against his cloak. He roared, plasma flaring brighter. "Traitor!" His voice shook, raw with betrayal. Vena hesitated, then stepped forward, her voice low. "He's not wrong, Malar. This isn't the moons." Her tattoos steadied, a choice made. Kale worked fast, sweat beading on his brow. He patched the core, rerouting the waves through a secondary loop. The hum softened, the ground calming for Z. A moment. He grinned, a flicker of hope igniting. Got it? Then it went wrong. A loud crack split the air, and the core flared red. The vines spasmed, glowing blindingly bright. A wave of plasma erupted from the wreck, tearing through the jungle. Trees splintered with a deafening snap, sap bursting into flame. The shockwave hit a nearby village. Kyle saw it through the trees, crystal huts collapsing, screams rising in the distance. He stumbled back, the wrench slipping from his grip. "No!" His voice broke, hollow with shock. The mark burned in, his chest stealing more. Joran's voice, gone now, just a faint echo he couldn't grasp. Silra dropped her bow, her face pale. "What did you do?" Her tone trembled, torn between anger and fear. Vena stared at the flames, her tattoos dark. "You broke it," she whispered, her voice small for once. Malor staggered forward, his plasma dimming. "I warned you," he rasped, clutching his burned arm. "This is your ruin." Kyle sank to his knees, the jungle's heat pressing in. He'd failed. Worse than Joran, the village burned because of him. His hands shook, grasping the comm device from his pocket. It flickered on. Joran's last words blinking. Find the truth. He clutched it tight, the blank space in his mind aching. Silra knelt beside him, her voice soft. You're not like the moons, but you tried. Her hand hovered, then rested on his shoulder. The ground rumbled again, deeper this time. The wreck shuddered and a new sound rose, a low, rhythmic thud like footsteps. Something bigger was coming, drawn by the blast. Kale lifted his head, eyes hard. This isn't over, but the jungle answered with a roar. The jungle burned, orange flames licking the sky as smoke choked the air. Kale Draven knelt by the Ecliptica wreck, his wrench cold against his palm. The twin moons hung overhead, their silver light dimmed by the haze. The rhythmic thud grew, louder, shaking the ground beneath him. Silra stood close, her energy bow loose, her silver hair streaked with ash. Vena paced nearby, her tattoos flickering weakly, her face tight with unease. The Warden loomed silent, its red eye fixed on the horizon. Malor emerged from the shadows, his silver cloak torn, his hands blazing with plasma. Moonfire, raw and wild, his voice thundered over the crackling flames. You've brought doom, outsider. He raised an arm, the orange glow flaring bright, casting jagged shadows across the clearing. Kale rose, his legs unsteady but his jaw set. Doom was already here, he said, his tone rough with grit. I just lit it up. Silra stepped forward, her voice sharp. Malor, stop. This isn't the moon's will. Her violet eyes darted to Kale, torn but steadying. Vena snorted, her hands clenched. He's right about one thing. It's not divine. Her tattoos pulsed, a faint hum against the chaos. Malor's glare cut through them all, fierce and unyielding. You've betrayed the moons. He thrust his hands forward, unleashing a wave of moonfire. The plasma roared, a searing wall of heat and light barreling toward them. Kyle dove, tackling Silra out of the path. They hit the dirt hard, the air rushing from his lungs. The fire scorched past, singeing his jacket, leaving a bitter sting on his skin. Vena ducked behind the wreck, cursing as sparks rained down. The Warden stood unmoved, its steel frame glowing red-hot from the blast. You okay? Kyle asked, rolling off Silra. His voice rasped, thick with smoke and strain. She nodded, pushing, up with a grunt. I've had worse. Her bow was back in her hands, steady now. Malor advanced, his plasma flaring again. No more mercy, he snarled, his scarred face twisted with rage. The moons demand your end. Kale staggered to his feet, wrench raised. His arm throbbed where the vine had cut him, his chest burned from the mark. He'd failed once. Wrecked a village, lost Joran's voice. Not again. He spotted the moons through the smoke. Satellites, not gods. If he could hack their signal, dampen the Warden's fault, he might stop this. Cover me, he said to Silra, darting toward the wreck. His boots slipped on sap-slick ground, but he kept moving. Silra fired, her energy bolt streaking blue through the haze. It struck Malor's shoulder, staggering him with a hiss of burning cloth. Vena joined in, hurling a shard of crystal she'd pried loose. It hit Malor's leg, drawing a sharp cry. Kyle reached the wreck, slamming his wrench into a panel. It popped open with a loud clang, revealing the neural core. Still glowing, still alive. He yanked wires, his hands steady despite the chaos. The moon's waves fed the fault. He'd tried rerouting them before, and failed. This time he'd cut deeper, tapped the signal itself. Malor recovered, his plasma surging. Fools. He launched another wave, wider, hotter, roaring toward them like a storm. Silra grabbed Vena, pulling her behind the wreck. Stay down. Her voice cracked, urgent and raw. The fire hit, shaking the hull with a deafening boom. Kale ducked, the heat searing his back, his jacket smoldering. He worked fast, splicing a relay with the wrench's edge. The core flickered, green shifting to red. Pain shot through him. The mark flared, stealing more. Yoren's laugh, a distant sound, faded to nothing. Kale grit his teeth, fighting the emptiness. "Not yet," he muttered, forcing his hands to move. The signal wavered, then died. The Warden's eye dimmed, its frame slumping slightly. But the ground shook harder, a deep groan rising from below. Kyle's hack had failed. Again. The plasma wave had masked it, but the fault was free. Angrier now. Malor laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You see? You can't stop it." His plasma flared, ready for the kill. Then boots crunched behind them. Rin, the smith, emerged with a dozen others. Farmers, tinkers, faces grim but determined. "We're with you, outsider," Rin called. Hammer raised. Kale stood, blood dripping from his arm. The tide was turning, but the roar below grew louder. The jungle crackled with heat, the air thick with smoke and the tang of burning sap. Kyle Draven stood by the Ecliptica wreck, blood dripping from his arm, wrench slick in his grip. The twin moons glared through the haze, their silver light flickering as the ground rumbled. Rin and his band of rebels, smiths, farmers, tinkers, fanned out behind him, tools raised like weapons. Silra knelt beside the wreck, her energy bow steady, her silver hair streaked with soot. Vena stood tall, her tattoos glowing bright. A fierce hum cutting through the chaos. Malor faced them, his plasma hands blazing orange, Moonfire swirling like a storm. "You'll all burn," he roared, his voice ragged with fury. His silver cloak hung in tatters, his scarred face lit by the glow. Kyle's chest burned, the moon's mark pulsing with every beat. His hack had failed, waking the fault below. But Rin's crew gave him a shot, humans stubborn and scrappy just like him. He turned to Silra, voice low, hit his hands. "Buy me time." She nodded, firing a bolt. It streaked blue, striking Malor's wrist with a sharp sizzle. He snarled, staggering back, plasma faltering. Vena darted forward, her voice sharp. "Keep him off balance." She hurled a crystal shard, catching his knee with a loud crack. Rin charged, hammer swinging. "For Lunara," he shouted, his blow glancing off Malor's arm, sparks flying. The rebels joined in, their tools clanging against the priest's plasma shield. Kyle dove back to the wreck, wrench prying at the neural core. The panel sparked, green light pulsing wild. He'd missed it before. The moon's waves weren't just power, they were a neural link, sinking the Warden to the fault. Yoren had locked it down, but Kale could rewrite it. His hands moved fast, splicing wires with the wrench's edge. Malor roared, plasma surging again. A wave of fire swept the clearing, forcing Rin's crew to scatter. Silra ducked, her bow skidding away. Vena shielded her face, tattoos flaring as heat singed her robes. Kale gritted his teeth, the blast scorching his back. Pain flared, but he kept working. The Warden spoke, its voice a deep grind. "Kale, the fault grows. You must sever the link." Its red eye flickered, dimming with every rumble. "I'm trying," Kale snapped, his voice hoarse. He traced the core's lines. Yoren's work, elegant but rigid. Kyle's fix was messier, human. He rerouted the waves, feeding them into his ship's reactor nearby. The hull groaned, its power flickering on. Silra crawled to him, her breath ragged. "What's the plan?" Her violet eyes searched his, trust taking root. "Sacrifice," Kale said, his tone heavy. He pointed to the ship. "It's got a blow to overload the moons." Her face fell, but she nodded. "Do it." Her voice was firm, a warrior's resolve shining through. Vena joined them, her tattoos steady now. "You're insane," she said, but she grabbed a wire, helping him splice. Malor advanced, plasma flaring wild. No more games. He unleashed a final blast, a roaring tide of fire. Rin dove, shielding a farmer, his hammer lost in the blaze. Kale yanked the last connection, the reactor humming loud. "Now," he shouted, slamming the panel shut. He sprinted to the ship, wrench sparking against its hull. The moon's mark burned. "Stealing more." Joran's last words. "Find the truth." Gone. Tears stung his eyes as he jammed the wrench into the controls, setting it to overload. The ship whined, a high-pitched scream as energy surged. Kyle stumbled back, Silra pulling him clear. The blast hit, a white-hot wave tearing through the wreck, the vines, the fault. The moons dimmed, their silver light fading as the link snapped. The Warden's eye went dark, its frame collapsing with a heavy thud. Malor screamed, his plasma snuffing out. He fell, charred and still, the fire consuming his cloak. The jungle quieted, smoke curling around the wreckage. Kale sank to his knees, the comm device slipping from his pocket. It flickered. Joran's log erased. "I don't remember you," he whispered, voice breaking. "But I got it, Joran." Silra knelt beside him, her hand firm on his shoulder. "You did enough." Her tone was soft, steadying him. Vena stared at the ruin, her voice quiet. "It's over." But a faint hum rose from the ground. A new signal, sharp and insistent. The jungle lay silent, its glowing vines dimmed by the smoke curling through the air. Kyle Draven knelt beside the Ecliptica wreck, his wrench cold and heavy in his hand. The twin moons hung faint above, their silver light dulled without the satellite's hum. Ash drifted down, soft as snow, mixing with the sharp sting of burnt sap. Silra stood beside him, her silver hair tangled, her energy bow resting on the ground. Vena leaned against the wreck, her tattoos dark, her breath steady but shallow. Malor's body lay still, his silver cloak charred to black, his plasma hands extinguished. The Warden's steel frame sprawled nearby, its red eye blank, a lifeless husk. Rin and his rebels gathered around, their tools lowered, faces streaked with soot and awe. The cost was high. Kale's ship gone, Joran's memory a void, but the fault was sealed. For now, Kale clutched his comm device, its screen cracked and dark. Joran's voice, his laugh, his words, all erased by the moon's mark. He felt the absence like a hole in his chest, raw and aching. "I finished it, Joran," he murmured, his voice rough with grief. "Whatever you started." Silra crouched beside him, her hand firm on his shoulder. "You gave us a chance," she said, her tone soft but steady. Her violet eyes held his, a quiet strength shining through. He managed a faint grin, wiping ash from his face. Didn't have much choice. His words hung heavy, tinged with loss. Vena pushed off the wreck, her voice low. "You broke everything to fix it." She crossed her arms, her tattoos still, her gaze distant. "Some chance." Rin stepped forward, his hammer dangling at his side. "He showed us the truth," he said, his voice rough but firm. "No gods, just gears." The rebels murmured, a mix of nods and frowns. A farmer, Gav, clutched a broken tool, his weathered face creased with doubt. "What now?" he asked, his tone quiet, searching. A young girl, eyes wide, peeked from behind him, whispering, "Is the curse really gone?" Kale stood, his legs shaky but his resolve hard. "It's not a curse. It's tech. Ours to use." He tapped the wrench against his palm, a steady beat grounding him. Silra rose too, her expression shifting. "The moons are dead," she said, her voice breaking slightly. She glanced at Mela's body, then away. "We're free." Vena's laugh was dry, cutting through the stillness. "Free to starve, maybe." She kicked a shard of crystal, sending it skittering. "They'll hate us for this." She was right. Shouts echoed from the jungle's edge. Villagers, their voices sharp with anger. "Traitors," a woman cried, her bead necklace clattering as she shook her fist. "You killed the moons." A smith hesitated, his hammer half raised, torn, between joining Rin or turning back. Kale's jaw tightened. He'd saved them, but they didn't see it. Not yet. The mark still burned in his chest, a faint pulse of power he couldn't shake. Joran's log was gone, but his mission lived in. The wreck in the moons, in Kale's hands. He'd lost his brother to find this truth, and he wouldn't let it slip away. "We'll show them," he said, his voice steady despite the ache. He looked to Silra, then Vayna. "Together." Silra nodded, her boat lifting slightly. "Together," she echoed, her tone firm. "A warrior reborn." Vayna sighed, her tattoos flickering back to life. "Fine. But don't expect me to like it." Her smirk returned, faint but real. Rin clapped Kale's shoulder, his grip strong. "You got us too, outsider." His crew rallied closer, tools gleaming in the dim light. The shouts grew louder, a mob forming beyond the trees. Kyle took a breath, the air thick with ash and tension. They'd won a battle, but the war was just starting. He'd given up his ship, his past, to fix this mess. Now he'd rebuild it, human stubbornness against a world of faith. Then the hum returned, sharp and piercing. It wasn't the moons. It came from below, deeper than before. The ground shivered, a low groan rising through the dirt. Silra's bow snapped up, her eyes wide. Vayna's tattoos flared, her breath catching. Kale spun the wrench in his hand, his voice hard. Round 2. Something was still alive down there, and it wasn't done with them. The jungle smoldered under a gray dawn, its glowing vines reduced to ash and embers. Kyle Draven stood atop the Ecliptica wreck, his wrench resting on his shoulder, the air sharp with burnt sap. The twin moons faded into the morning sky, there, silver light no longer a threat. Silra worked beside him, her silver hair tied back, her hands weaving a lantern from crystal shards. Vayna sat nearby, her tattoos humming softly as she patched a salvaged conduit. The hum beneath the ground lingered, a faint pulse in the dirt. Weeks had passed since Malor's fall, since the ship's blast silenced the fault. The villagers had scattered, some fleeing, some staying to rebuild. Rin's crew hammered at a new forge, their clangs ringing through the clearing. Lanterns hung from rebuilt huts, silver flames flickering alongside glowing tech tubes. Kyle had taught them Techvox, a blend of gears and faith, a new way forward. He wiped sweat from his brow, his chest still aching from the moons. Mark. Joran's memory was gone, but his comm device sat in his pocket, a silent tether. "They're learning," he said, nodding toward a smith twisting wire into a lantern frame. Silra glanced up, her violet eyes steady. "Some are," she replied, her voice calm but firm. She tied off the lantern, its light pulsing softly. "Others cling to the old songs." Vayna snorted, her fingers deft on the conduit. "Like Tira," she said, her tone dry, still praying to dead moons. Her tattoos flared briefly, a spark of irritation. Kale looked across the clearing. Tira knelt by a broken hut, her bead necklace clicking as she whispered to the sky. Nearby, Rin showed a young girl, Leah, how to spark a circuit, her giggles bright against the gloom. Gav, the farmer, adjusted a biotube in the soil, his face creased but open. The village wasn't whole, not yet, but it was shifting, piece by piece. "We're not forcing them," Kyle said, his voice steady. He tapped the wrench against the wreck, a dull thud grounding him. "They'll see it works." Silra set the lantern down, her hands still. "It's not just about working," she said, her tone softer now. "It's about trust." He met her gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between them. She'd shared her title, Sacred One no more, but the weight lingered. Vayna had too. Her tattoos a tool now, not a prophecy. They'd fought beside him, lost their world to save it. Kyle felt the same. His ship, his past, gone for this. A shout broke the quiet. Outsider, Terra stood, her beads swinging, her voice sharp with venom. "You've cursed us." She pointed to the sky, where the moons barely glowed. Rin stepped forward, hammer in hand. "He's saved us, Tira," he said, his tone rough but patient. "Look around." Gav nodded, his voice low. Crops grow faster with his tubes. He gestured to the soil, green shoots peeking through. Tira's eyes blazed, but Leah tugged her sleeve. I like the lights, the girl said, her voice small but clear. They're pretty, the old woman faltered, her beads stilling. Kyle watched, his jaw tight. Not everyone would bend, not yet. But cracks were forming, and that was enough. He turned back to the wreck, salvaging a panel. They'd build tools, homes, a future. Human grit against a fractured faith. Silra picked up her lantern, testing its glow. Elian would have liked this, she said, her voice catching slightly. She'd told Kale of the priest's death. A rebel's blade in the chaos, his last words, a plea for truth. He did his part, Kyle replied, his tone heavy. He set the panel down, hands steady despite the ache. We're doing ours. Vena stood, brushing dirt from her robes. If they don't kill us first, she muttered, her smirk faint but real. The hum beneath grew sharper, a steady buzz cutting through the morning. Kale frowned, his senses prickling. It wasn't the fault. They'd sealed that. This was new, deliberate, like a signal calling out. He glanced at Silra, then Vena. They felt it too. Eyes wide, hands tense. Rin dropped his hammer. The clang, loud in the stillness. What's that? His voice rose, edged with unease. Kale spun the wrench in his hand, his pulse quickening. Something's listening. Then the ground cracked open, a thin fissure snaking through the dirt. A red glow, pulsed from below, alive and waiting. The fissure pulsed red in the dawn light, a jagged scar cutting through the jungle floor. Kyle Draven stood at its edge, wrench spinning in his hand, the air sharp with ozone and ash. The twin moons hung faint above, their silver glow a whisper against the gray sky. Silra crouched nearby, her silver hair catching the faint light, her hands steady on a salvaged crystal shard. Vena paced behind, her tattoos humming with a restless buzz, her eyes locked on the glowing crack. The village froze, tools clattering to the ground as Rin and his crew backed away. The hum grew louder, a steady throb, vibrating through the dirt. Tira clutched her beads, her voice trembling. The moon's wrath returns. Her cry echoed, stirring fear in the crowd. Leah, the young girl, hid behind Gav, her wide eyes peeking out. Kale's pulse quickened, his senses sharp from the moon's mark. This wasn't the fault. He'd sealed that with his ship's blast. This was deeper, older, a signal buried in Lunara 7's bones. He knelt, peering into the fissure. The red glow pulsed like a heartbeat, warm and alive, tugging at something in his chest. What is it? Silra asked, her voice low but firm. She leaned closer, the shard glinting in her grip. Kale shook his head, his tone steady. Not sure yet, but it's no god. He tapped the wrench against the ground, a dull thud cutting the tension. Vena stopped pacing, her tattoos flaring. Bright. Another mess you've woken, she said, her voice sharp but curious. She crossed her arms, watching him. Rin stepped up, hammer in hand. Could be more tech, he said, his tone rough with hope. Like the wreck. Before Kale could reply, the hum sharpened, a high-pitched whine slicing through the air. The fissure widened, dirt crumbling with a soft hiss. A wave of static burst from below, crackling across the clearing. Kale's comm device sparked in his pocket, its screen flickering to life. A voice broke through, faint but clear, cutting through years of silence. Kale, if you hear this, don't stop. His breath caught, his hand trembling as he pulled the comm free. Jorin's voice, Jorin's, after all he'd lost. The mark had taken his brother's memory, but here it was. Alive in the static. Jorin, he whispered, his voice raw with shock. Silra's eyes widened, her shard dropping. Your brother? Her tone softened, a mix of awe and concern. Kyle nodded, clutching the comm tight. He left this, deeper than the wreck. His mind raced, piecing it together. Jorin hadn't, just sealed the fault. He'd buried something else, something waiting. Vena's laugh was short, nervous. Great. Another ghost to haunt us. Her tattoo steadied, her gaze flicking to the fissure. The crowd murmured, Tira's prayers clashing with Rin's shouts to stay calm. Gav knelt by the crack, his voice quiet. It's warm. Like the tubes. He looked to Kyle, seeking answers. Kale stood, the wrench a solid weight in his grip. Joran's message looped in his head, a tether to what he'd lost. Don't stop, he muttered, echoing the words. He'd rebuilt this place with tech and grit, human stubbornness against the odds. Whatever Joran had left, Kale would find. It? We need to dig, he said, turning to Silra. His voice was firm, cutting through the hum. This isn't over. She met his gaze, nodding slowly. I'll get the tools, she said, her tone steady, a partner now, not a follower. Vena sighed, rolling her eyes. Fine. But if it's trouble, it's on you. Her smirk returned, faint but sharp. Rin rallied his crew, their hammers gleaming. We're in, Kale, he called, his voice strong. Whatever's down there, we'll face it. The fissure pulsed again, the red glow brightening. Kyle stepped closer, the heat rising against his face. Joran had died for this world, sealing the fault, planting this seed. Kale had no ship, no way back, but he had this, a chance to finish it. He spun the wrench, his resolve hard as steel. Then the calm crackled louder, Joran's voice shifting. Third moon. It's the key. The words cut off, static swallowing them. Kale froze, his eyes snapping to the sky. A faint dot glimmered beyond the twins. A third moon, waking now. The ground shook, the fissure splitting wider, and a metallic groan rose from the depths. Something big was climbing up.